Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Simon, and in this video I'm going to cover the Unix administration grade lab called Users and Groups. And I'm making this video to help prepare you for your test coming up because this is a grade lab that was already past due. So if you did this grade lab and you didn't do well on it, then I'm going to hopefully clarify anything that you struggled with so that you really feel confident that you can go into your test and do really well. Like I said, this is a grade lab that was past due, so if you didn't even do it, then you're probably going to get 0, so I'm not really helping you cheat. But I still wanted to clarify the content so that you really understand this, and that way when you get it on your test, you're going to be able to do it with no problems. So the very first thing we're going to do is go down to part A, and we're going to set up this lab. And what we're going to do is import a fresh copy of the W01 and S01 virtual machines, boot both of them, but only log in to the W01 machine as Alice. We're not going to log into S01 because from W01 we're going to remotely log into S01 as a root. So I'll show you how that works, but first let's get our fresh copies of W01 and S01 into VirtualBox. So go into VirtualBox. If you have W01 and S01 from previous labs, just delete them because we want fresh copies. Go to File and then go to Import Appliance and find your OVA file. So and go to desktop, and my file is right there. Yours might be in a different location, but once you find it, just click open, click next, and then you're going to get this window, and this window allows you to change the settings. You can leave the settings, to be honest with you. It's probably not going to make a huge difference, but if you do want to change anything, what I would say is just change W01, because W01 is a graphical user interface and it could benefit from increasing the CPU to maybe 2. And the RAM, we could probably increase it from 1024 to 2048, but besides for that, you're not going to see much difference, to be honest with you. So whenever you're happy with the settings that you have, just click import and wait. And with this whole waiting process, what I'll do is just explain why we're learning users and groups. Basically, as a system administrator working for a company that uses Linux systems, you're going to be creating a lot of accounts, and you're going to do things like change their password. I can tell you from experience, I change passwords every day, sometimes for the same people every single day. You're going to learn how to change their account so that they have to change their password every 90 days. You're going to learn how to lock their accounts if they're on vacation or if they get suspended for any reason. You're going to learn how to create groups and add members to groups so that if you have folders that only certain groups should have access to, those people in those groups can do it, everyone else can't. So there's tons of things you're going to learn, but they're actually all going to be very useful, and you will find that you use this often, especially as a system administrator. So now that we have our virtual machines in VirtualBox, we can load them up. So I'm going to start both of them at the same time. I've got a beefy computer so it can handle it, but if your computer isn't great, then just do one at a time just so that your machine doesn't get really slow, okay? And we'll bring this guy over here and bring S01 over here. And like I said to you before too, we're not going to actually log into S01. I will to show you one thing, and that's it. But you don't have to. So once S01 is finally loaded everything, you can actually just minimize it. So see how it's at this screen? At this point, you can minimize it, and that's fine. We're not going to use the actual window for anything. I'm going to leave it up because I'm going to show you one thing, and that's it. Once W01 is loaded, log in as Alice by double-clicking her name, typing in user pass, and wait for it to load into the desktop. Once it has, you can go to Applications, click on System Tools, and open up the terminal. So let's bring this guy up here. Let's bring that down there. This is what I want to show you. As I said here, we're only going to log in to W1 as Alice. We're not going to log into S01. And we're going to remote into S01 as root. So this is how you do it. You say SSH, and then you're going to put the name of the person or the user that you want to remote in as, and then the address of that computer. So the S01 IP address is 10.1.1.20. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to say SSH root of S01 10.1.1.20. And it's going to ask us for a password, which is admin pass. And there we go. Now I went from being in W01 to root of S01. So this is what I'm going to show you. What's really important to remember is whatever you do in this window now, because you're in S01, it's not going to impact the W01 virtual machine. It's only going to impact the S01 virtual machine. and I'll show you what that looks like. I'm going to log into SO1. You don't have to, but when I log in, I'm in the home directory of root. Okay, if I say pwd, we'll see I'm in root, and if I say ls, you're going to see I have 3 files. You don't have to memorize these files or see what they actually do. I'm just showing you that as of right now I have 3 files. But if I go up to W01, go into this terminal where I'm logged in as root of SO1, and I create a new file. I say touch home directory Simon is awesome.txt, and I hit enter. You're going to see that down here on SO1, if I say ls, I now have a new file called Simon is awesome.txt. So remember, anything you do while you're remoted into SO1 here is only going to impact SO1. If I go into Alice's home directory, I'm not going to see Simon is awesome in there. So that's all I wanted to show you from this window, but for now we can minimize it because we're not going to use it again until later. So let's just make this guy bigger. Let's make the window bigger so that you can see everything that you need to see. And now that we've done that, we can move on to part B. So what does part B want from us? Well, it says welcome message. What it basically wants us to do is we want to put a file on every user's home directory that we create that says welcome. Okay, now it says the welcome.txt file is what we're going to have to call it, but we can put anything in there. It just can't be empty. Okay, so we can say whatever we want. So how do we do this? Well, in the actual practice lab, it tells us in part E. So part E says customizing new users with etc/skel or skel. This is a directory where if you put a file or a folder in this directory, it'll be presented to everyone in their home directory when you create their account. So for example, a welcome message. If you want to have a little welcome message for every new user that you create, you're going to put it in etc/skel, and that will put it in everyone's home directory. So you don't have to constantly be doing it. It just automatically does it for you. So it's really, really useful, and it's very easy to use because all you have to do is this command right here. You're just going to echo whatever you want, it can be anything, and redirect it into the etc/skel directory. And in this case, we want to make sure we call it welcome.txt, but you can call it whatever you want technically. So that's what I'm going to do right here. I'm going to say echo welcome to Simon's great company of fun, redirect it into etc/skel, and we'll call it welcome.txt. Hit enter. I didn't get any errors, so it's probably good, but if you want to check, just say ls, which is list, everything in etc/skel, and we can see there's a welcome text, and if you're still not sure if that's the same one that you just created, you can cat it. And there we go. Welcome to Simon's great company of fun. So there we go. All done. Part B already. So now we can move on to part C, which is where we're actually going to start creating users. So it says we're going to create users from the catering and accounting departments described in the user list with the following configuration. Here's the user list, by the way. I have it ready. And it says we need to make sure that the users must change their password every 90 days, and we have to set each user's password to new pass. So there's 3 things we need to do. First, we need to create the account, then make sure that users must change their password every 90 days, and then set their password to new pass. So that's 3 things that we have to do. So let's start with the first one. If I go into the practice lab, there's a part that says simple user create, and this is basically what we're going to use to create accounts. We're going to say user add, which is the command, type in the username, -c, which is going to allow us to type in their full name, and then -m. Okay, so let's look at this list and let's create all these users. So here's the username, and here are their full names. So that's all the information that we need so far. Okay, so I'm going to do that right now. User add, we're going to say first one is Eddie. And done. So let's do the next user. Alright, and then the next user. And the last user. Okay, perfect. So if you notice, I only did 4 users, and in case I didn't make it clear, it did say that we only need to create users from the catering and accounting departments. So when you go to this list, we only need these 2 people from the catering department, and then these 2 people from accounting. So that's why I only did 4, even though there's this massive list right here. Okay, so that's good, but there's still more that we have to do, because we also have to make sure that the users must change their password every 90 days. So how are we going to do that? Well, again, the practice lab shows you. So if you scroll down, you're going to see something that says password aging. And if you want, you can see what they have right now as their current setup. So let's just say chage-l, and we'll use Eddie. And we can see maximum number of days between password changes, and it's basically infinity, right? And we don't want that. We want 90 days. So how are we going to change that? Well, this is what we're going to do right here. chh-M 90, and then the username. So that capital M is basically the maximum number of days that they can keep the same password, and 90 is going to refer to the days, and this is the username. So let's do that. So we're going to say chh capital M 90, and then we're going to say Eddie, and we're just going to put all of the names in. But see how quick this is? It's very quick to do every single one of these steps, especially if you are using the up arrow to just recall the last command. So we've got almost everything done. We just have to change the password now to new pass for each of these users. And the way that we do it, if you go to the practice lab, we'll have to go back up to simple user create, and here's the password. Basically, you're going to say password, username. It'll ask you to type in the password that you want. In this case, new pass isn't a great password. It doesn't meet all the requirements, but because we're root, if we type it in twice, we can basically say we don't care that it's not a great password, just use it, and the system will do as we say because we're root. So I'll show you what that looks like. So we're going to say password Eddie, and it's going to say change the password. So the new password is going to be new pass, and it says bad password. So let's type it again, new pass, and there we go. It's successfully updated to new pass. So let's do it again, but we'll do it for the other users. That's good. Let's do it for Bill. Okay, and I'm just going to clear this, and we're going to do this for the last user, Carlos. Alright, so we are now officially done part C, which is creating users. So let's move down to part D, groups. So here, what they want us to do is create a group named accounting, a group named catering, and a group named staff. And accounting is going to be where all the members of the accounting department belong. Catering is going to be where all the members of the catering department belong. And staff is going to be where both members of catering and accounting belong. So everyone's going to be in the staff group, but only accounting members are going to be in accounting, and only catering members are going to be in catering. So there's basically 2 steps that we have to do. We have to create these groups, and then we have to put each of the members in these groups. So let's do that. And once again, just go to your practice lab and look for something that says groups. So here we are, part F, groups. To make a group, you're just going to say group add and then the group name. So that's pretty easy. Group add, and we'll do accounting first. Group add catering, and then group add staff. Okay, so how do we put members into these groups? Well, this is where you have an option. You can use this, or you can use this command. Whichever one you use is up to you. I like the gpassword-a username and then the group name, only because it's a little bit simpler. You will find that if you use user mod, if you make both A and G capitals or you make both of them lowercases, that can negatively impact this. You can actually mess this up. So I find that this one ends up being a little bit easier to use, and it's a little bit more self-explanatory. You're basically saying, you know, in terms of this password, I want to make sure this user, or not password, sorry, in terms of this group, I want to make sure this user goes into this group. So that's the one that I'm going to use. So it's G password dash A, and then we'll say Eddie, and Eddie is going to go into catering. And now we see adding user Eddie to group catering. And we'll do the same thing for the next user. We'll do the same thing for the next user, except the next user will be in accounting. And then we'll do the same thing for the last user, which was Carlos, I believe, and he is in accounting. But now we have to make sure all of them go into staff. So we can do the very same thing, just change it from accounting to staff for Carlos, changing Carlos to Bill, and doing it for every single other user. So there's 2 left. Eddie, that was the one. There we go. So now we have every single group that we need, which is staff, catering, and accounting, and all of these groups have their members. So catering has Eddie and Nero. We also have the accounting group, which is going to be Bill and Carlos, and then staff has all 4 of them. So we did everything properly. So let's go back to the grade lab, and this is where we can move past part D and go straight to part E, and it's basically creating shared directories. So in here, what we have to do is create directories. It wants us to create share/accounting, share/catering, and share/staff. And then we're going to set ownership and permissions so that the group members have full access. So if you're part of catering, you have full access, everyone else does not. If you're in accounting, you have full access to accounting, everyone else does not. And if you're in staff, everyone in staff has full access, everyone else does not if you're not in staff. And then we're going to make sure that regular users who are not in the group must have no access, which is what I just kind of explained. So this is pretty simple, but it requires 3 steps. The first is creating each of these folders. And then what we have to do is we have to change the ownership, because when we create them, we're creating them as root. But if we're going to make sure that everyone that's part of the right group has access to these folders, we got to make sure that the folders are owned by the group that it needs to be. So for example, if we're just creating accounting, we got to make sure the owner isn't root. The owner has to be accounting. And once we make the owner accounting, then we can change the permissions to say only people in the accounting group can access this. Because if we don't change root to accounting, then root is going to be the group. And if you say everyone in the group can access this, everyone in root's group will be able to access it, which is not what we want. So I'll show you what that looks like, but basically in your practice lab, you will see it right here. These are the 3 steps, and most students forget this step, changing the ownership. They just go to make the directory and they change permissions, and then they're like, oh, why doesn't it work? Make the directory, change ownership first, and then change the permissions. So we're going to make the directory just the way that it shows here for each of them. So let's make directory P. We're going to say share, and we'll do accounting first. Then we'll do catering. Then we're going to do staff. So now we have all the directories created, which is perfect. Now we're going to change the ownership so that it is owned by the groups. So let's do the first one, chown, and then we're going to say root, which means root used to own it. Now it's going to be owned by accounting, and we're going to make sure that it is the share accounting directory where this gets changed. Now let's change this for catering. And finally, staff. Perfect. So now that we've created the directories and we've changed the ownership so the groups own their respective directories, now we can change the permissions and say only people that are part of the same group as the owner, which is the group, can access this. So we're going to say chmod 2770 share accounting, catering, and staff. And that's it. So it seems really complicated, but I promise you this stuff becomes very easy once you've done it so many times. And especially if you know where to look in the practice labs, it becomes really, really easy. So now that we've done that, we can move on to part D, which is checking your work. So this is, I guess, fun. I don't know, because you're going to see down here, we're going to have to delete all these files, but let's do it anyway, just to make sure that everything's working. What we're going to do is basically, first of all, check our IDs and make sure that every single one of us are in the right, or every single user is in their right group. And then we're going to try to write files to each of the folders. And for example, Eddie, who is part of catering, should be able to write to catering's folder and staff, but not accounting. And Bill should be able to write to accounting and staff, but not catering. So that's what we're testing here. That's what this is just explaining in this entire thing. So let's do that. How you do that is first say SU, which is switch user, and let's try Eddie first. And now we're Eddie. So what we're going to do is let's just say touch, and then we will say share catering, because he's in catering, so it should work, and we'll call it Eddie so we know that this is from Eddie. Okay, we didn't get an error, so that means that's probably good. So let's try the same thing, but instead of catering, staff, because it should still work. And it did. But let's try accounting, because Eddie's not part of accounting. There we go. Cannot touch this directory because the permission's denied. So that's good. That's exactly what we wanted to. And if you want to make sure, just say ID. And you'll see when you say ID, Eddie belongs to his own group. He will also belong to, his own group's right here. He also belongs to catering, and he belongs to staff. So everything is perfect for Eddie. So let's exit this, go back to root, and then go in as narrow. And we can see ID right away if you want to. You can see the group. Narrow's in their own group. They are in catering and they're in staff as well. So if we say touch share catering narrow.txt, that worked. It should work for staff as well. And it should not work for accounting. Perfect. Permission denied. So that worked great. So now let's exit and we'll try Bill. So switch user to Bill. And ID, we can see the groups. Bill's in his own. He also is in accounting and in staff. So this time if we say touch share accounting Bill, that will work. If we go into staff, that will work as well. But if he goes into catering, which the other two were able to do, it should say permission denied, and that's perfect. So let's exit Bill and let's go into the last account, which is Carlos. ID, we can see Carlos has his own group. He's also in accounting and staff, so that's good. We're going to say touch share accounting carlos.txt. That was good. Go to staff. That was good, and catering should not be good. Great. So everything worked perfectly. So in terms of part D, you're already done and you can move on. But good job so far if you were able to keep up. So let's clear this guy, and now we're going to clean up. So what it wants us to do is remove all the files that we created in all the share folders, okay? So this is kind of a pain to do, but because I'm Carlos, Carlos has access to change and add anything in the accounting directory and the staff. So Carlos can actually remove share accounting and carlos.txt, and he can also remove Bill's because he's part of the same group. He can also remove everyone's text file from staff because he has permission to do that. So I'll start with Carlos, and then Bill, Alright, so all those files from staff are removed, all the files in accounting are removed, but if I try to remove share catering and Eddie, you'll see that it's not going to work because I don't have permission, so I'll have to actually exit Carlos and sign in as Eddie or Nero to do this. And let's remove share catering Eddie and remove Nero because we have permission to do that as well. Alright, so that's it. So that's all you had to do is remove everything in all the share folders for now. But now what we have to do is we have to create a README file that contains this in the accounting folder and create another README file for catering that says this. So let's do that. But it does tell us right here, make sure that the README file is owned by root. So that means don't make any of the users make this file. Make sure root is making this file. So what we're going to do is say clear and just say exit. And you can see now we're root, so we can make these changes no problem. So let's say echo, the first one says this directory is for the use of accounting team only, and we'll redirect that into share accounting, and we're going to call it readme. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing for the catering. The only difference is they're going to say PS who's hungry, but it's pretty much the exact same thing. So change the share directory to catering. README is still going to be the name of the text, and we'll just add this little PS who's hungry. Alright, so we'll hit enter, and that's it. That's all you had to do for part E. So that was pretty easy to do. So now we're at part F, which is prepare for account handover. And this is where it says force all the new users to change their password for the first time they log in. So you're going to say, well, we said that they had to change it every 90 days and we gave them new pass. So how are we going to make sure that they change it right away? And once again, the practice lab tells you how to do that. So let's go back up to the simple user create, okay, and see how we made the password. Well, what we're going to have to do is, sorry, we're not going to go in simple user create. We're going to go to password aging. With password aging, it's okay that we said that it has to be 90 days every time they're going to have to change their password. That's normal. But we can also say they have to change it right away. So you can still do this code, which says make sure that they have no days left before they have to change their password, and it will not impact what we did up here when we said make sure they change their password every 90 days. So they're two totally different things, but basically this is all we need to do is say chage-d, which means days left before they have to change their password, and we could say 0, which means change it now. And we're going to do that right now. We're going to say chage-d 0 and then the username. So Eddie, Nero, Bill, and Carlos. And that's it. That's all you had to do for part F. Alright, so part G says late breaking news. Nero just attacked Eddie, and basically they're both getting suspended. So what we have to do is we have to lock both their accounts. Alright, so the way that we do this is if you go back in the practice lab, you will actually see there is a section called locking users, and it's as simple as this. We're just going to say user mod dash capital L and a username. So that's what we're going to do. User mod dash capital L, and it was Eddie and Nero. And there you go. You're all done. That's it. Because the next part is grading, which means we're just going to download the file that we need to run the script with, unzip it, and then we're going to send it to SO1, and then we're going to run that script, and then we're going to take that output and send it back to W01 and upload it to eLearn. So I'll show you what it looks like. I'm not going to upload to eLearn because I'm not taking the course anymore, but what we can do is make this guy bigger. And I'm going to leave this window up, but let's open up Firefox and let's download that actual file. So this can take a long time. I'm not sure why it's so slow, but it is. Let's go right here. Okay, let's go here. Let's go to Dropbox. And users and groups. So we're going to download this host zip and just save it. It's going to put it in our downloads folder. We can minimize this because we don't need this anymore. We will go into applications, system tools, and open a new terminal. And you can see we're Alice now. So what we can do is go into downloads, if I can spell, and we're going to say ls just to make sure the file's there. It is. We're going to say unzip host and then just hit tab and it'll auto-complete it for you. And there we go. If we say ls, we can now see we have this script and we want to send that script to SO1. So if you want just to go into SO1, go into your temp directory and ls, you'll see a bunch of files, but you'll see it's not there yet. So if we go back to W01 as Alice, we can send it over. And the way we do it is by using the SCP command. So you're going to use this a lot, so get very familiar with it. You're going to say SCP, which is going to be transferring the file. You're going to select the file that you want to use, so host.sh. Make sure it's the sh, not the zip, because we can't unzip using SO1 yet. You're going to learn that later on in a different lab, but in this lab you don't know how to do it, so I'm going to assume that you don't know how to do it, and we're just going to make sure we unzip it here and send just the script over. So SCP and then host, and now what you're going to do is put in the root of SO1, which is the username of that we're going to be logging into, at the IP address of SO1, so it's 10.1.1.20, and then colon / and we're going to put in the temp folder. You can probably put in any folder, but just in case, we're going to put in the temp folder. And we'll put in admin pass because that's the password of root on SO1, and you'll see it transferred the file perfectly because it has 100%. So that's great. Now, if I go back in SO1 right now and I say ls, we can see that host file is right there. So all we have to do to run it is say period or dot / and then the name of the script, host_info_ug.sh, and hit enter. It's going to give you a bunch of text, and it just means that it ran and it created an output for us. So if we hit ls, we're going to see not only do we have that host file, but now we have this new HTML file. And we can't really use the HTML file in SO1 because SO1 doesn't have a browser. So we'll have to send it back to W01 using the same SCP command. But this time we're going to say SCP. The name of the file is now S01_report_UG HTML. And we're going to say as, well, let's say root again, but this time it's root of W01 at 10.1.1.10. That's the IP address of W01, and colon / temp, and that's it. We'll hit enter, put in the password, admin pass, and we'll see that it sent it, so everything's good. And now if I go in here, I can actually go cd temp ls, see we have this SO1 report, and we'll load it up on Firefox. And there it is. So let's close this window because we no longer need it. We can close this window, we no longer need it, and let's just expand this guy a little bit. And I'll show you what it's showing us. So basically it's saying hostname. It means that we ran this on SO1. So even though we never used this window ever, you can see that we properly were remoted into SO1 from W01. It checked the etc/skill, and we can see that we have the welcome text there, and we can see what we wrote in there, so it's not empty. It checked for all the users and their groups, so we can see Eddie, and we can see their group Eddie catering and staff. Same thing with every single one of them. They're all here, so that's good. We can see the shared directories. We created all of them, and we can also see which group owns them, which is perfect. Down here it says readme files. It only wanted to see the readme files, and you can see that right here. There's a readme file for each of these folders, and we can see what they say. So you're going to get full points for that. And then it says check for aging, just a spot check. And so it says narrow. We can see the maximum number of days between password change is 90, but they have to change their password right now. Same thing with Carlos. Now it says also check for user lock, just a spot check. We can see Eddie has a lock on there. It says password locked. And we can also see that Bill does not. So that's perfect because Eddie and Nero were the ones that had their accounts locked. So everything worked out perfect. This is how you would have got 100% on this lab. So I know that there's a lot of information, and I'm sure that there's some stuff that you might be confused about. So if you are, just give me a message or just make a comment on YouTube and say, hey, can you explain this? And I'd be happy to go over it with you. But this is basically what you need to do to get 100% on this lab, and what you need to do to understand everything that you're going to have to do when you do your test. There will definitely be user creations and group creations and share folders and all that stuff. So make sure you understand this really, really well, and good luck on that test when you do it. Okay, have a good one, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.